Hi, everybody. I am so excited today because this is my first author interview in the Facebook group. I have not had a chance to interview anybody yet, and now you're going to get a chance to meet all the authors of the book that we just launched last week, Everyday Woman's Guide to Doing What You Love. And what's so much fun for me is when we put together this book and wanted to set up a platform for women to become authors, to share their stories so you guys can get to know them and know how amazing they are. I didn't personally know any of these women or most of these women, and then now I get to know them personally. So it's just really exciting. And my name is Galit Ventura Rosen. Most of you know I'm co-founder of Everyday Woman with Angela Giles, this amazing group that you're a part of. And today I'm excited to share with you the most amazing woman that I've gotten to know more and more through her writing and through having her on different Zoom meetings and such. Today we have Dr. Sarah Allen. She's a pediatric neuropsychologist, author, parent and teacher coach, and founder of Brain Behavior Bridge. And her chapter is titled It Snapped, But I Didn't, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. So welcome, Dr. Sarah Allen.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so honored to be the first one.
Yes, it's so much fun. Angela may have interviewed somebody yet, but you're my first. So we kind of still figuring it out. That's why we're running a bit late today. So sorry, everybody. But sometimes technology works against you. What I would love if you started out was just telling people a little bit more about you, about your story, about I know how much you love what you do. So about what you do, and that's really what the book is, doing what you love. And you truly are an example of that.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. So I'm Dr. Sarah, as you said. I'm America's Brain Gal. And I'm a mom of two beautiful kids. I have a daughter and a son. And I've been helping parents raise their little brains for a very long time. And I more recently kind of came, and my chapter is a lot about kind of connecting my personal story with my professional background and finding this path towards raising little brains. And I realized over the pandemic, as everything shut down, just how much of my 15 plus years in studying brain science, I actually was putting into raising my kids and also finding myself. And so I wanted to share some of that with the world. And that's how the book Raising Brains came about. And then being able to be a part of this book really kind of solidifies everything I talk about a lot with my parents and also in my book about just connecting, the power of connection, the empowerment of women, the idea of finding what you love and doing that. I love helping other parents gain that confidence. We all have this fear, I think, of failing our kids and worrying that we're not doing right by them. I have found that by shifting your mindset and seeing your kids as little brains, it really helps to reduce our emotion and really grab the things that are important to us and important to our kids and really push everybody forward so we can raise these happy and successful and connected little kids. So that's kind of a lot of my background, my story in terms of my personal story. People will call it tragedies, but I didn't realize it was that because you kind of just go through it. But, my mom's had cancer twice. I lost 3 children on the way to having my kids. They all only lived about an hour. And then my 29-year-old sister died of breast cancer, got divorced, moved to a new town, and then everything shut down really fast. And so you was kind of left with this idea of processing all of those things that had happened. And, in the chapter in this awesome, incredible book with all these women, I really got to talk a little bit about what that was like, that process, and how that kind of ended for me as I'm entering this new chapter of my business and my world. So they kind of all came together. And so it was really exciting to be able to put that together.
Yay. And Dr. Sarah, we had a little bit of technology problems. So I'm going to kind of try to start over because we really just went live. There was a little bit of a technical, that's what I was doing on my phone. So everybody watching, my name is Galit Ventura Rosen. I'm co-founder of Everyday Woman and Women Supporting Women. I know I'm also live on my YouTube channel and in my group, Galit's Women Empowering Women. So welcome everybody that are watching. What we're doing is we're interviewing the authors from our book that just launched last week called Everyday Woman's Guide to Doing What You Love. I'm going to reintroduce Dr. Sarah Allen. For those of you that watched on my other channels, thank you and be patient with us. But I want to make sure everybody in the group of 13,000 gets a chance to see what we're doing. They did hear your bio, just so you know, Dr. Sarah, but they didn't hear the introduction. And I just wanted to make sure I reintroduced you. And then we're going to jump right into what you talked about regarding children and brains and stuff, especially as a mom of 3. So I just want to make sure that I introduce you again. Dr. Sarah Allen, pediatric neuropsychologist, author, parent and teacher coach, and founder of Brain Behavior Bridge. And her chapter in the book, Everyday Woman's Guide to Doing What You Love, is called It Snapped, But I Didn't. And so thank you for your patience for this. Now, what I wanted to jump into real quick is one of the things that you said reminded me. I became a mom quite young. My first child was born when I was 24. And I remember being in the hospital with this newborn child and thinking, they're going to let me take him home.
Right?
Right? Who hasn't had that, right, Dr. Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to let me take him home. I don't think I know what I'm doing. And one of the things that you said that really stood out to me as parents, I also have 3 children, as I mentioned, and my youngest is almost 18, so I've gone quite a ways already with them, is that we really worry so much about our children. Are we doing right by them? Are we raising them right? Are they going to be good citizens of the world? And we really are, as moms, so tough on ourselves, and dads too. But today we're talking to women. And so I would love for you, from everything that you've learned, from everything that you do, I mean, this is what you studied. This is what you practice. Mm-hmm. What are some tips that you can give that are logical and also a little bit of, okay, ladies, give yourself a break here, that you can give those that are watching that are moms or maybe thinking of being moms?
Well, I talk about hashtag mom guilt all the time because we all have mom guilt, right? And we're all, like you said, trying to do what's right by our kids. And I think that a lot of times we have these conversations about behavior management, right? Managing our kids, but we don't really talk about raising good humans until your kids are around your kids' age, where they bigger and they are their own people. And you're like, I hope I really, was able to give them everything. And you're still working on a totally different way, but still working very much on helping them grow up to be good people. And I really think that comes from shifting your mindset from behavior management, managing behavior, because kids talk with their behavior. So what we realized is, instead of managing behavior, we want to build skills and really, again, start working on their little brains. And the number one tip I can give parents is start thinking, what does this little brain need? And what can I teach this little brain?
I love that.
And when you make that shift to asking that question instead of trying to stop the behavior in front of you, and you start listening to the message and not the delivery of that child, because kids talk with their behavior, you start changing the way that you approach your kids. And that's what a lot of the Raising Brains books is about really kind of getting this idea of, okay, what does this brain need? What can I teach it? Because we're constant teachers. And I'm sure everybody who had the experience of being alone with kids in the pandemic, you realized a lot about your kids. I hear this a lot from moms, I didn't realize how much my kid thought through some of those things, or what a cool person they were, or they were struggling in this area. And we really got to know our kids in a very different way. And there's been a lot of shifts since then. And so to take the opportunity now to start saying, what does this little brain need? And what can I teach this little brain? It's a very different approach. And I think those two things help a lot. The other tip I would give, and we hear this across parent management strategies, but from a brain perspective, we want to start talking about calming our emotions. And so what we're looking at is, there's a part of our brain called the amygdala, that's the emotion center. I call her Amy G. People have heard me say this before, she's just so emotional. I picture her like this teenager who's rolling her eyes, pretty much like my daughter, but with dark hair and like a really moody face. And she's they get all crazy. Well, our kids have that, and we have that. And then there's the front of our brain. I call her Franny. I picture her like an older woman in a school who's like actually running the school, not the principal who thinks they're running it, but the one who's getting everybody together and organizing everything. And so Franny is trying to calm down our Amy G's a lot. And when Franny does that, Franny can't also think logically and respond appropriately and think, what does this little brain need? What can I teach this little brain, right? It can't do all those things. And so, what we really have to work on is that balance between EG and Franny. And one of the best ways to do that is by starting to ask yourselves those questions, because it will kind of depersonalize it for you. And you start to become what I call a brain detective. And so now you're actually trying to spend your time thinking about what that message is and what you can teach versus, again, responding with your AMEG. And so those are the top 2 tips that I can give parents, and that's why these strategies work so much. And that's why speaking of everyday women doing what you love, why I love this so much, because it's transformation, and you can watch women become confident and happy and successful from being a parent, just like they are at work with what they do.
Yes.
We run our house as efficiently and effectively and as lovingly as we might run our business. And I get to do that every day.
And tell everybody the name of your book. I think you've authored your own book or books, right?
Yeah. So
please share those.
My book is Raising Brains, and it's a mindful meddling plan to raise happy, successful, connected kids. And I talk about mindful meddling. I know it's a fun term, but I'm a meddler kind of by nature. So I want everybody in my life to do as best they can. I want to make everybody happy. But we really, with our kids, need to mindfully meddle, because what our job is to raise happy and successful kids on their own with skills that they need to handle things in our life. And this is actually where it crosses with my chapter in the Everyday Woman book, because, we can't save our kids from all bad things. My chapter has a lot to do with my sister's death, and I couldn't save them from losing their Aunt Nana. That's just not, trust me, if I had the power to do that, I would have. But what I can do is teach them these skills and mindfully meddle, meaning guide them, not direct them.
Oh my gosh, I have to stop you there, because that is such a big thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Guide them, not direct them.
Yep.
That to me is like so, say that again.
I said mindfully meddle, guide, but not direct, right?
Yes, mindfully meddle. I love that. Mm-hmm. I have to talk about that for a minute, because as a mom of 3 kids, they couldn't be more different.
Right? Isn't that
the way they look, their personalities, what they want to do in life, the significant others that they choose. You choose it, they're different. Now, what's amazing about my 3 kids is that from the ages of almost 18 to almost 25 is that they are close as you can be, right? You can't be closer than my kids. I mean, it's just amazing. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's the upbringing, but they're so different that as I was raising my children, there wasn't a black and white way to speak to them. There wasn't a one way to discipline them. There wasn't one way to guide them.
Right.
And I love that you said that, because I think sometimes as parents, we think that we're supposed to treat all our children the same. Now, please understand, I don't mean don't love your children the same.
Right.
And I have found with each one, they needed something different. Now, what's really fun, Dr. Sarah, is when your child, he's not a child anymore, he's going to be 25 in October, is an adult and says to you, "Thank you, Mom, for the way you raised me, because if you would have put me in a box, I don't know what I would have done."
And that's so important, Galit, because it's about, this is why the book is written the way it was. It's a guide. I wanted that manual. I wanted the rules when I
Yes, when you leave the hospital and they leave you with directions.
And I had like 15 plus years, as I said before, of experience, and I've been helping parents and all these things, and I still wanted that. And if I gave you a rule book, your kids would break it the first 2 days. And it's because there isn't shoulds. I hate the shoulds of parenting. There are no shoulds in parenting. If you start to think and shift your mindset into raising your little brains, you're going to do exactly what you just said, which you do naturally, which is wonderful, to start looking at what your individual kid's brain needs. What do they need and how do I foster them? And it's not about you anymore. It's about them. And
that is the key.
Yeah. And it's about making them.
Say that again so people hear that.
Not about you. It's about
Thank you. It's not about you.
We don't need to should. How should you do it? You should do it the way that your kid's little brain needs. And that's why Raising Brains came about, because it was, I said, this is like creating your own parent manual. But you're right, it's your own parent manual for each individual kid. You don't treat people the same, and you don't treat people the same in your everyday world. That's why we have all fun people in the world. People doing all, the 51 women in this book are doing all different things.
So different. And one of my pet peeves as a parent is when a parent says, "Because I said so."
Right.
I struggle with that my whole life, because a child is asking a question. Why not have a conversation with that child? and
Well,
explain to them why. And of course, I'm talking about simple things, Dr. Sarah. I'm not talking about breaking the law or doing things that are dangerous. Those are different. I'm talking about normal, everyday things. So you tell a child, pick up that toy, and they say, no, I don't want to. And then you say, no, they say, why do I have to? And you say, because I said so.
right.
Sometimes I learned as a mom that having those deeper conversations with my children allowed me to understand how their brain worked. So I was making assumptions that were not accurate for my child. So something silly as pick up that toy right now. Well, why do I have to? And I'll say, let's talk about why you have to. And not a lot of parents like to parent like this, but I say, let's talk about it. If you leave it on the floor, someone's going to walk by, they're going to step on it, they might trip, they might hurt themselves. Wait, mom's not just telling me what to do because she's trying to demand it or control it. There's actually a reason behind it.
Well, and then your kid might say to you, well, but I was going to bring it in the kitchen so that we could have breakfast together because we're playing a game and that's my friend. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. And then when you're done, put it away. And I think that that's the thing, to really get inside that little brain and figure out what it needs to learn. And then you can also tailor what you say to that as well. And we're not talking about having lengthy conversations about picking a toy up, but to be able to say, because we need to keep things clean, someone might trip on it. You taught them something. You're starting to teach, oh, I should pick my things up because there's something else that's going to happen to somebody else in the world. Now we're talking about empathy and, socializing and emotional understanding. It's all wonderful things just in that simple shift in the way that you interact with your kids. And
so true. So true. And for me, it was always till today as an adult, I'm a listener first. I've done my best my whole life not to assume. And of course, we're human. So your book, is it geared towards parents with children at a certain age?
Yeah, the book is really applicable for 2 through 14, 16,
Well, wonderful.
Designed to be able to guide you through those things. And, that's the hope. There's also a lot of information on my website. There's some things that link from the book to the website as well, which is brainbehaviorbridge.com. And there's some freebies on there and some webinars on there too. And I think, this is why I like Everyday Woman so much. It's about empowering people and families to really think about what they're doing. And once you have kind of the rules in a sense, right? Not the how-to rules, but the how to think rules about things. You feel so much more comfortable. You don't question yourself constantly, because that's another thing I see women saying, like, I don't know if I'm good. I know I need to relax. I need to de-stress. It's about me. And I'm thinking, well, how are you going to do that if you're constantly thinking about your kids? You're worried about leaving them with somebody else because you're worried about how they're going to behave. People can't manage them well, and so if you're worried about all that, yeah, sure, I can say here, send you over to the spa or go take a day off. But that day off is going to put you so far behind with everything, and you're going to be so overwhelmed by the concept of what's happening that you're not going to be able to. And it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work because you need tools and you need to know how. Listen, when we all have jobs, we learn the tricks of the trade, right? Like as a real estate.
Practice.
Right?
So quick question. A lot of the stuff, a lot of times when we get to the teenage years, it's way more complicated and there's a lot going on and everybody uses the word, oh my gosh, I have a teenager. But your book, even if you didn't start when they were younger, you can still jump in. It's never too late. And I think that we need to really express that to anybody listening, that this brain, this working with them and raising these brains and this child isn't just, oh my gosh, when they're 2, 4, 6, or 8. They could be teenagers. They could be young adults. And I think that people need to recognize you can still change your relationship with your child.
Yeah, and I talk a lot about growth mindset. And the reason that this book is written the way it is because I always say you have to get to know yourself, you have to get to know your child, and then yourself as a parent. They're 3 different things. And it's a two-way street. It's not just about you as the parent knowing everything. It's you and your child work together on a team. It should be this team approach. And so growth mindset really talks about finding the areas that you blow or that you're just totally rocking life, and finding the places you need to grow and that you need to get better. We do this naturally in our jobs. Our jobs are set up that way. We have goals that we meet. And for some reason, we don't do it at home with our kids and with ourselves. And so that's really a big connection point. This Everyday Woman's Guide is about women figuring out who they are, what's important to them, and what they love to do. That's an essential part to being a mom, because you can't pour from an empty cup, as I say. You have to have yourself good. And this is a model that can be used for adults, let alone for teenagers.
Of course, listening and paying attention and being an effective communicator and working with somebody and not making assumptions can be used for the rest of our lives. I mean, if more people used it, what amazing conversations we would have. Right. So Dr. Sarah, I don't want to tell too much about your chapter because your chapter is so beautiful and I think it needs to be read. Mm-hmm. But I'd love it for 2 minutes before you shared how people could get a hold of you. And I know you have a special offer as well. A little bit, and I know you did at the beginning, but just to wrap up a little bit, the chapter's called It Snapped, But I Didn't. And I think it'd be fun if people understood what that title meant.
Sure. Well, speaking of emotions and Amy G, this was a very emotional chapter for me to write. And I appreciated the opportunity to be able to write something a little bit different like this because the chapter is really about kind of grief over my sister in a sense, but more about the process of working through that and the connection between, the thoughts over my sister's death, plus this wonderful future that I had built and created with my Brain Behavior Bridge brand and with Raising Brains. So it's actually a little bit about the story of taking the photo shoot for Raising Brains with my kids and the cover. You can kind of see them in the background here. But while still having going through this process, because as we all know, grief and coping is a long-term game. And so it's kind of about those two worlds colliding and, what happened and how I realized, whether I was moving forward or not. So not to give too much away, but, that's why, it talks about snapping, right? Because we all snap emotionally and such. And so it's an interesting chapter to read, I hope, anyway.
It is beautiful. I know that sometimes when we write our own stuff, we double think it. It's normal. It's human. I think it makes us very vulnerable and makes us approachable. But I know that I really loved it, and it gave me insight. And I barely knew you, and then I felt like I kind of got to know you. So I think everyone's going to really enjoy it. I want to share the 2 links that are on here real quick, and then I want Dr. Sarah to share a little more information about her. Everydaywoman.me/book authors gives you an opportunity to meet all of the authors. There's 51. You have all of their social media links if they have a website. You also have different kinds of videos you can watch that they've done. So please check that out. It also gives you a direct link to purchase the book, or the book is on Amazon and all online retailers. And then everydaywoman.me/book by itself is if you're interested in being part of our next book, which is called Everyday Woman's Guide to Success in Your Business. And it'll be also 50 authors. So Dr. Sarah, share with us a little bit about your freebies, your website, your offers, anything that might interest those that are watching and listening.
Well, first offer is that anyone, especially anyone listening to in your network, Gilly, for sure, can always reach out to me at Dr. Allen. It's just DRALLEN at brainbehaviorbridge.com. And I'll put that up in.
Yes, we'll put it in the links. We'll put everything in the comments.
So yeah, definitely reach out to me with any questions, or you just want to talk about stuff. I'm happy to chat with you. And then my website, brainbehaviorbridge.com, has a bunch of, if you go to the media page, there's a bunch of other podcasts and some TV things that I've done. If you're interested in more content, some articles as well. There's a great one about mindful meddling, and some other things on there. So definitely you can check any of that stuff out. And then there's, of course, some freebies as well. And there's a link to a page I call mybraingal.com. And it's a Facebook page where we throw some fun content and get moms talking, joking around, and creating a community with each other. So you're welcome to do that. And then I also have a course that is kind of the next level of the book. So I find as a mom, and I'm sure many women can relate out there, you read all the books, and there's a book called 1, 2, 3 Magic. That's great. There's some Dan Siegel work that's great. Hopefully my book will come anywhere close to theirs. And we read all these books, but it's in the application of applying it to our household and our kids and our family that's really tough. And so parents were asking for some application. And so I created a course called the Little Brain Master Parenting course. And that actually leads me to the offer. So if anyone's interested in that course, you could reach out to me. Just in Dr. Allen at brainbehaviorbridge.com. Mention this Everyday Women's, and I'll give you $500 off that course because I know anyone in this community is going to be a good potential match for that program. Just note that we do screen people in that program, make sure it's the right match. So just be a little patient with us to make sure that you're a good fit. But other than that, we would love to to have you. So I'll give that offer out too, just because this has been such a wonderful experience. I want to share it with you.
Yeah, and we'll put all the links. I'll have you do each one separately with this is the offer, this is the website, this is the group. So that way, because a lot of people are going to be watching this in replay over the next few weeks, and we want to make sure that they get an opportunity to grab those links, because sometimes when we say them out loud, people are writing really fast and messing up the words, right?
Brain behavior bridge, nobody can say 3 times fast anyway. So
I know, I'm not going to even try. That's not even, yeah, not trying. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we go?
I just want women to know, especially women who are working moms, that you're not alone, and that it can be easier, and you can feel happy, and you can, sometimes I have women that come up to me and just say, like, I hate my kids, and we've all been there, but you don't have to, and you can work through it. And there's definitely some strategies in some ways. So join the group community, reach out, you're not on your own here. So
yes, that's such a big thing, because again, we're not taught how to be parents. We're not taught, and sometimes some people's parents didn't teach them the best way to raise their children. So they didn't have role models or someone they could observe that would teach them how to raise their children. And some parents decide to raise their children completely different than they were raised, for a lot of times good reason. But we live in a world where at our fingertips, we have so much knowledge, so much information, so much education. Someone like Dr. Sarah Allen, especially. So please reach out, please connect. There's so many ways to connect. Like I said, if you go to the book authors, everydaywoman.me/book authors, you can click on all of Dr. Sarah's social media links. Everything's there for you as well. Makes it really easy to message her. And also go ahead and grab your freebies from her website and grab her book. That sounds like so much fun. Your book just sounds so logical.
Yeah. And then check out all the other chapters. There's so many amazing women in this book. I got to befriend a couple, and I can't wait to connect with everybody else. It's one of the bonuses. If anyone's thinking about doing the next book, it's one of the bonuses of being in that 51 women group, is you're kind of in a special spot too.
You are. We have a we have a Facebook group, and everyone's getting to know each other. And then my goal is to get everybody together. And so and we do these Zoom calls. So it's really great, because you do go from such a large community to a smaller community, which makes it a little bit easier to get to know each other personally. So thank you. And I'm so glad you're part of this book, and I appreciate you. And thank you for sharing all of your amazing knowledge and expertise with us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Glee. It was really nice.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.